Joe Biden was asked if he'd eliminate student loan debt, and he gave an interesting answer.
On the economy, the vice president-elect talked about having an economy that works for working people. One thing I didn't hear you talk specifically about is canceling student loan debt. Does student loan forgiveness figure in your plan? Would you take executive action to achieve it?
It does figure in my plan. I've laid out in detail. For example, the legislation passed by the Democratic House calls for immediate $10,000 forgiveness of student loans. It's holding people up. They're in real trouble. They're having to make choices between paying their student loan and paying their rent, those kinds of decisions. It should be done immediately. In addition to that, as you know, I think that everything from community college straight through to doubling Pell Grants to making sure that we have access, free education for anyone making under $125,000 for 4 years of college. And there is a program that exists now under the law that forgives student loans for being able to engaging in public service. I'm going to institute a fundamental change in that so it's able to be available to everyone that in fact is engaged. It's not being very well managed right now. So I'm going to do all of those things. Thank you.
Now, if you go back and watch that clip again, there are parts that are concerning because of the way in which he answers. He basically brings up like a House bill where there's a certain amount of the student loan debt that's eliminated. But if he's bringing up the House bill, that means he's saying, I want to do this with Congress. It would get through the House. It would die in the Senate. There's no way this is going to get through the Senate. And then it wouldn't reach his desk. So if he's kind of relying on a House bill, what he's saying is, I don't have the executive authority, or I don't want to use the executive authority to eliminate student loan debt or even reduce student loan debt. And so the next day, he came out and he clarified a little bit. And I'll read you the tweet. This is from NPR. On Monday, President-elect Joe Biden affirmed his support for erasing some student debt, quote, immediately. The provision calls for the federal government to pay off up to $10,000 in private, non-federal student loans for economically distressed borrowers. They're means testing too much, and now it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And again, I just learned this week or last week that any president has the authority to wipe the student loan debt slate clean. Trump has suspended student loan payments because of COVID, because people couldn't pay it. And so he temporarily suspended it. You have the president has the authority through an executive order to say, nobody has to pay student loans back anymore. We're going to wipe the debt slate clean. But instead of doing that, he's hinting, I'll either use the House bill, which won't get to his desk because it won't pass the Senate, or he'll do some weird middle ground thing under existing law and won't go nearly far enough. So listen, I don't want to downplay. If he does any amount of student loan debt forgiveness, that is going to help a tremendous number of people. So I would encourage him to do something. But at the same time, he's making it clear he's going to disappoint on this front. Anything short of wiping the student loan debt slate clean, I think, is kind of bullshit. But, he ain't going to do that. And then originally people were talking about a number of wiping $50,000 off of it. He ain't going to do that. Now we're talking about $10,000, but only the provision calls for the federal government to pay off up to $10,000 in private, non-federal student loans for economically distressed borrowers. And then he also said the thing at the end about, if you do like community service, then it's like, you're means testing too much, man. No. You should just wipe the student loan debt slate clean. That's over $1 trillion, by the way, in stimulus. Over $1 trillion in stimulus, and that money will then be used by people to boost the economy in other ways. I know a lot of people who are really held back by their student loans. And there's this new right-wing talking point that's floating around is like, this would actually only help the wealthy. What are you talking about? No, this is going to help middle-class people and poor people massively. A lot of the wealthy people I know, they never had student loans. Their parents paid for their college. A lot of the people who took out student loans are either middle class or poor, and they're still paying it back. I don't know where this notion came from of like, this is going to help the upper middle class. First of all, and putting all that stuff aside too, as a matter of principle, I don't think there should be student loans. I don't think that should exist. In the same way, I don't think that medical debt should exist. So if you told me, hey, to get rid of medical debt, that only helps the upper middle class, I'd say, I don't care. Medical debt shouldn't exist. Wipe it clean. I don't care if it was only the rich who had medical debt. Wipe it clean. Medical debt is a thing that shouldn't exist. Get rid of it. Student loan debt is a thing that shouldn't exist. Get rid of it. You want to better your life and improve your life and have better job prospects, and you got to go into massive debt to do it? I mean, what a shitty system. It's a weird form of like indentured servitude. But anyway, not going nearly far enough. I hope he does, man. I don't know how many times I could say this on the show, but bottom line, I really hope that Joe Biden proves the skeptics and the cynics like myself wrong, and he is the best president since FDR, and he realizes how serious the moment is. But, you know, he only has flashes here and there of good things. A lot of the stuff is like this, which is just so mealy-mouthed and weaselly, and he's using weasel words, and I don't have high hopes on this front for student debt, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how it unfolds.